Good morning, everyone. I can see that you're all filing in. So nice to have you here. We are actually in Lainie's kitchen today.
Hi, everyone.
This is Lainie, everybody,
Welcome.
and we'll do proper introductions in a minute. So come on in and grab yourself a cup of tea. I've got my peppermint. What are you drinking?
I am drinking lemongrass and ginger. Pukka tea is my favourite.
Oh, I like pukka tea, l'chaim. We're toasting in with tea today. Are you allowed to do that? Is that like officially allowed?
Yeah, why not? Let's do it.
But as I've said before, if you're in Melbourne, it's acceptable to be having a little cocktail at 11. We don't.
Yes,
we think that that's okay.
We are not judging day drinking.
Not at all. I think a mimosa would be nice.
Yes.
As you sit down and watch. It's a nice morning
idea.
drink. Bloody Mary.
Yeah, I like
or
that.
even a virgin Bloody Mary.
Or like a
is
hot
quite
toddy.
Nice. Oh, a hot toddy would be nice. Yeah.
I like that.
Is a hot toddy different to blue wine? Hot toddy is like brandy and.
It's like with tea or honey, I think.
And a shot of brandy.
I know, I'm not so versed in
So Melbourne people, big hi to you and welcome, and we're a little bit buoyed for you that the numbers are going down finally, and we really hope and pray, all of us, that they'll keep going down and you'll be out of lockdown soon. But great to have you all here. Nessie says, hi Lainie, great to see you.
Hi Nessie.
Hi, nice to see you here, Nessie. Please feel free, everybody, to chat to us in the chat section. Wherever you're watching, you'll have a little chat icon and you can just click on it and type. And if you click to all panelists, we can see what you're writing. We'd love to talk to you. We would love to know that you're there and how you are. How are you all going in Melbourne? How are you going in Sydney? Anyone from anywhere else in the world? Hi, Nikki. Nikki's here.
Hi, Tones.
Yeah.
Hi, everyone from Melbourne.
Hi, everybody.
From Sydney.
Hi, Tony. Hi, everybody. Welcome. Come in. We're going to start in a couple of minutes, probably in 1 minute. Grab yourselves a cup of tea. Get comfortable.
Hi,
it's going to be a lovely hour. Hi, everybody.
Hi, Wendy.
Hi, Wendy.
Florida.
Oh,
it's a nice
hi,
one.
Simone from Florida. Great to see you here. Wow.
12 degrees. Wow, that
Melbourne.
is very cold.
Yeah, it's very cold.
We've got very good weather in Sydney today.
Hi, Peter from Canberra. Julia. Hi, everybody. Welcome, welcome. Come on in. Get yourself comfortable. Grab yourself a drink, a tea if you're anywhere in the world, a cocktail if you're in Melbourne. No, I think we should stop encouraging this drinking in Melbourne, but we're trying to
make a really nice pot of tea.
Yeah.
Maybe Persian chai.
What's in Persian chai?
Cardamom.
Yeah.
What else? It's like a black tea base, I'm pretty sure.
Would you put cinnamon in or not?
More, yeah. That sounds good.
I would love cinnamon, cardamom, tiny bit of clove.
Yes, that'd be very good.
A slice of fresh ginger.
Yeah, maybe a bit of lemon zest.
This is good.
Yeah.
Okay, got that, everybody? That's what you need to do in Melbourne. Forget the alcohol. Let's go tea. Hi, everybody. Hi. Have you ever
Arizona? That's fun.
Wow. No, we have not sent the recipe out yet. It will be sent out afterwards. And if you've got a pen and paper, you can write down while we're cooking. It's very old-fashioned to say pen and paper because most people probably do it
on your
phone. I don't know, on your notes. Hi from Castle Cove. Hi, everybody. Welcome. So grab yourself a cup of tea. We're going to start in 1 minute. We try to start on, we start on time in the sense that it's arrival, come in at 11 and we start at 11:05, which it is right now. So I think we're going to start in about 10 seconds. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to this beautiful day. It is Thursday morning. I got the day right this time.
Yeah.
And I am Lisa Goldberg from the Monday Morning Cooking Club and here for Dinera Australia, and so thrilled to be here with my favourite gal, Lainie Cadry.
Hi, everyone.
So this is Lainie and we're in Lainie's kitchen today. And welcome everybody from all around Australia. Big shout out to those of you in Melbourne who are doing it tough, and everyone from around the world. I see we've got people from Arizona, from all over the place, someone from Perth across the country. Great to have you here. I just want a quick reminder of what's coming up for Dinera because there are some amazing events across the board in all areas, but I'm just talking food today. And next, the first thing is tomorrow morning, there's a Monday Morning Cooking Club event that I'd love you all to join in at 11 a.m. where we are cooking our favourite starters for Shabbat. So we're doing my family's egg and onion and our friend Jeff Engelman's best guacamole in the world, not joking. So please join us tomorrow at 11. You can find the details on Monday Morning Cooking Club social media. Then next Thursday, the 27th, in a week, I'm going to be in my kitchen, but talking in Melbourne to Alice Zaslavsky, who is the MasterChef alumni. Amazing, amazing girl. And you'll see what she's been up to. She's doing recipes on ABC TV at the moment and lots of wonderful things. So that's next Thursday. And lots of things coming up after that for Rosh Hashanah. So check the Dinero website often and see what we're going to put in. It's going to be really sweet and delicious.
Wow, that's exciting.
So, Lainie. I have known Lainie since you were born, because Lainie is the same age as my youngest son, and you've been friends forever.
Yeah,
and
we were like best friends when we were kids.
Absolutely. So it's very close to my heart to be here with you today. And Lainie's been in the Monday Morning Cooking Club books twice, which is quite fantastic, with beautiful recipes from her heritage. So Lainie is Sydney born with the most amazing rich heritage that I've really come across. Her grandparents on her mother's side are from Lithuania and Germany, so a very Ashkenazi background.
And a bit
there.
of Poland in there as well.
Yeah, I think everyone has a bit of Poland in there as well, right? Actually. And on her father's side, Persia, a beautiful, rich Persian background that has given so much to your life and your cooking.
Absolutely.
Which I really, really love. That's what I love about your cooking, that real combination of, we were talking before about Ashkenazi and Sephardi, and it's not Sephardi, it's Ashkenazi and what your mum calls Mizrahi cooking.
Yeah, I think it's a fusion of obviously like my Persian heritage, my Eastern European heritage, and kind of bringing them together with a big Jewish tie, I guess you could say.
In a really unique way.
In a re-inspired way. But let's get the soup on.
Yeah. But before we do that, I just want to read you one thing. And I should also tell you that Lainie's not just a cook. Lainie is also a pediatric nurse, very accomplished, and does the most amazing things in her career, does so much for other people, and then has this whole other cooking life that is quite legendary in the community, I have to say. But we'll talk more about that.
It's quite funny. My work colleagues, when I was at the Children's Hospital, they were all, when they discovered my Lainie's Kitchen Instagram page, they're like, "You've got a side hustle?" Like they were shocked. It's quite funny.
That's exactly it. It's very inspiring. And we will talk more about Lainie's heritage and her grandparents once we get the soup on. But first, I just want to read one thing that sort of Lainie has written in one of our books that I think is just sums her up from a food perspective. Talking about her grandparents, she says, "Their journey has shaped the way I cook. The food I love isn't bound by one tradition or cuisine, and being Jewish is at its core. On our Shabbat table, the traditions of Eastern Europe are seen in the challah, with caramelized onions on top of my own touch, in the chopped liver and the egg dip, in the matzah balls and the lokshenkugel. My rich Persian heritage is evident in the gondi, chicken dumplings, and spiced chicken soup, in the choresht, stew, loaded with celery, and in the crunchy tadig, crispy rice." I mean, that's her in a food description. And one other incredible thing that I think is the most moving part of this whole time together is that Lainie's great-grandfather was actually on the Dinero and was one of the Dinero boys. And we'll talk about that when the soup is on, because it's an amazing story. But we've decided it's such an amazing story that we're going to give it a good amount of time today. But we need to then schedule another session with Lainie and her mum, Judy, to talk about the Dinero story from their own perspective, because, you know, we're on the Dinero website, which is created, you know, in memory and honor and inspired by. So imagine we want to hear that whole story.
And just for a bit of context, my mum, Judy Wilkenfeld, OAM, she is a genealogist. So she has collated all of this information on both my father's side and her side, and we're the lucky recipients because it's all documented for us. So.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, can't wait to hear. We'll talk about that. But let's get the soup on. Lainie, tell us what we're making today.
So today we're going to be making a cauliflower soup, and it's got caramelized onions in it. I think you can see there, which I just sweated earlier in a little bit of avocado oil. You could definitely use olive oil or any neutral tasting oil. But I kind of try to cook healthily or with healthy ingredients as much as I can. And these are just slivered almonds, they're raw. And I've got some vegetable stock, So this is a litre. So I'm going to be making the soup with 2 heads worth of cauliflower, which I've just cut up into florets.
It's a lot of cauli.
It's a lot of cauli. Cauliflower is obviously very high in water content. So when you cook it down, it's going to shrink and give off its water, and it's going to make a really sweet, beautiful, creamy soup. This was 2 onions that I sweated. And this is about a cup of almonds, but you could easily half the recipe if you're just 2 people at home or don't want leftovers. And then we're going to put a really yum almond and citrus gremolata on the top for a bit of like textural interest.
Yeah, I think that takes this soup to the next level.
Yeah, it's
just talk about that. So let's get the cauliflower on, and then we'll
so I've
start
just
talking.
heated up my stock. So that was 2 litres of stock. And do you mind passing me the cauliflower? Sure. I'm just going to put the florets in, and I'm putting it on a high heat, and we're going to boil the cauliflower with the almonds probably for around 15 minutes or until the cauliflower is really tender. You don't want any resistance in the cauliflower because, you know, normally it's nice to have bite from vegetables, but when you're making a pureed soup, you really want that smooth, silky texture. And if the cauliflower is undercooked, it's going to be a bit more gritty, would you say? Yeah,
gritty, grainy.
Yeah, grainy.
So don't worry, we're not doing anything else on the stove. It's just going on the pot, and then we're going to come back here, so you're not missing anything there. Just a question. The recipe is not from an MNCC book. It's actually Lainie's recipe, which she's going to share with you.
I'm also going to share it on my Instagram page, Lainie's Kitchen. And I'm going to put in the quantities and all the ingredients so you can make it whenever it's good.
So those of you on Instagram, head to Lainie's Kitchen. She has a beautiful Instagram with the most delicious, mouth-watering food that'll make you just want to go and cook, I think, or eat, or both. All right, so they're boiling.
Lise, I'm just going to cover the cauliflower so it's just covered with water.
Okay.
You don't want to have too much water because, like I said earlier, the cauliflower is going to give off water, and we want a nice thick soup. So I'm just putting the lid on that, and to clarify, that's 2 heads of cauliflower, 2 onions that I sweated in a little bit of avocado oil, and 1 cup of slivered almonds.
Okay, great.
And that's it, and just some stock. And I'm actually also going to add a little bit of white pepper and onion powder. The nice thing about this soup is you can really make it with what you have on hand. Obviously cauliflower is the base, but if you want to use chicken stock, or my mum freezes chicken soup often, and if you want to, you know, make it a more like meat inspired soup, you could definitely use chicken stock. And I often make it with cashew nuts as well if you don't have almonds. So yeah, play around with it. But
could you add, I mean, I would like to add some carrots if I had, or some zucchinis if I had.
I've definitely added carrot. We're going to be blending it in a high-speed blender. We've got a Breville blender. I've tried using a stick blender before. You definitely can use a stick blender, but it's not going to have as smooth a texture as the blender. And definitely, if you want to add carrot for a little bit of sweetness, and you only have a stick blender, maybe I'd leave it out because you're going to see like chunks of carrot, and it's probably not going to aesthetically look so
I agree
pleasing.
with you. The blender is definitely the best, especially a strong one like this, or a Vitamix or something. It's really ideal. You get a soup that feels like it's got cream in it.
Yeah, literally.
It's so creamy, but it
really
doesn't.
Good. Yeah.
Okay, so Hillary says, remember your mum used to do cooking demos years ago?
Yes, my mum actually used to do cooking demos for Wheat Sale. And my mum is really an incredible cook. She is so significant in my food journey and teaching me how to cook. She really empowered me with how to cook with what you have in the house. So obviously it's fun to go and buy ingredients for recipes and things like that. But when you're young, you don't have a car, or you know, you want to save money, you have to cook with what you've got in the fridge. So it's really a big part of my cooking now to avoid waste and repurpose. You know, maybe if I have brisket from Shabbat and no one wants to look at it on a Sunday, maybe I'll add some barbecue sauce and make it sticky in a pan and make a flatbread. Or so she really taught me how to do that. And then baking, my mum wasn't so interested in baking, and neither were my grandmothers. So I cooked a lot with my cousin Debbie Springer, and we like decorate little Marie biscuits together. And then I kind of graduated to, box mixes at home.
It's a good place to start,
It's
though,
good,
isn't it?
right?
Yeah.
Nothing
And you were what,
wrong.
like 7 or 8 when that happened, you said?
Yeah, 7 or 8. And then I would watch YouTube videos non-stop. And I really got into a stage of like cake decorating and piping. And then now I'm kind of more focused on, like my Persian heritage and my Eastern European heritage, and tying them together with an influence of Judaism. And for me, I'm observant, so kashrut is also a component of my cooking. But I grew up in a traditional family, but maybe not observant. So I've had exposure to the realm of non-kosher food and restaurants. So I kind of try to bring parts and memories of my upbringing, or if I've eaten at restaurants and if I can't eat there anymore, I try to recreate those dishes at home, and that's a really fun thing for me.
I mean, I've had the opportunity to watch Lainie grow through her Instagram account, really, since I've known you. How long have you been on Instagram? Probably 5 years? Yeah. And someone asked, it's spelled Lainie, Lainie's Kitchen, one word. That's her Instagram account. And she started off cooking, this, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. And now it's like feasts, the tables laden with food and the most incredible things that we all want to cook. But I want to go back to your heritage for a minute. And just talk to me, please, a bit about both sides of grandparents. Let's start with your mum's parents, the Ashkenazi side.
Well, it's so relevant because obviously the Dinera project was named after the Dinera ship. And so just for a bit of context, my grandfather survived the Holocaust, and so did his father. And like I said before, he had a Polish and German background. So after Kristallnacht, they said, you've got to leave, because he had that Polish background. So only the men were told this. So he had to leave, and he was trying to get papers for his family to leave, because in Germany was my great-grandmother and their 3 children, Gershon, who was my grandfather and who was the oldest, Berta, who was probably 5, and I think it was Nissan. We'll ask my mum. But so they were back in Germany, and my great-grandfather was trying to get papers for them to leave. So to focus on his journey, essentially, in short, which we'll discuss at greater length in another episode, he left and went to England. And in England, he was interned, and then he traveled on the Dinera ship, and he arrived in Australia. And on the Dinera ship, they experienced quite a lot of persecution and difficulty, but all of the Jews, they banded together and they had each other. And he arrived in Australia. He was also interned here. So it's like the history of the Jews, persecuted, but they come out thriving, right?
It's so true.
And my grandmother's family, so my grandmother was born in Lithuania in a little shtetl. When she was 3, her family came, or her mother and siblings came to Australia, and her father had been here for a few years trying to get papers for them, and he got them successfully, thank God. And she started the dance company Bloch with her father, which is obviously an international dance brand now.
Amazing.
So very rich history of Eastern European Jewry, and obviously the Dinera. Which
can we go back to that for a minute?
Yeah,
It's
definitely.
so incredible. particularly for me and for all of us who have been working behind the scenes on the Dinero project, to actually speak to someone about the actual Dinero tile. Like, we've been talking about it in such a, not a concrete sense. It's been like this inspirational thing, and, we've heard about it and we've heard stories about it, but here is the story. And I'd really love to hear just a little bit more.
Yeah.
Although we do need a whole hour on it. They have got so many incredible archives here to look at. Like, they've got the currency that they developed when they're in the camp. I think in Australia, they developed their own currency.
Like, I'll show you. This is the currency they developed. It's unbelievable. And this is the mezuzah that my great-grandfather made.
This is incredible.
And we're so fortunate again that my mum has archived all of this.
Yeah, your mum's done a fantastic job. I mean, this says, this currency, it says, the Camp 7 Bank, Internet Camp Hay, will upon demand pay against this note 6 pence legal Australian currency. I mean, they made this. This is unbelievable.
Look at this painting.
And who did that painting? Do you know? Or just the painting of the camp?
I think it was made in the camp. I'm not entirely sure, but we'll ask my mum next time.
Oh, in Melbourne. Okay. So this is just an incredible little insight into what's to come. A snippet.
It's
exactly.
a snippet.
Just going to
Really
put this here.
snippet.
And there's a box down there, like this crate, with Lainie's great-grandfather's name on it.
Basically, when they were on the Dinero ship, like I was explaining earlier, they were persecuted. They threw off all of their luggage, their tefillin, their sidurim, all of their possessions, their documentations, their ID. They threw it off the ship. They had no possessions left. And they came here with nothing and built such a legacy. And one of the things he built was this wooden crate with all his belongings, and we still have it today. So
your great-grandfather, the Dinero was a ship that was sent from England.
Yes.
For young boys, or is it young boys?
Mostly men.
Yeah.
There were Italians on the Dinero. There were Jews on the Dinero. There were actually Nazis on the Dinero, who were some of the people who persecuted the Jews. But like I said, the Jews kind of all hung out together. The Italians hung out together, and it took them about a month to get to Australia.
Right.
And
I'm sure you've got, or your mum's got lots of stories about that journey that we'll hear another time.
I'm probably not doing the history.
No, you know what? We're just having a general chat today. It's fine. We'll get into the details.
It's really a privilege to have all this information documented and be able to share it with you guys.
So where was your grandfather at this point?
He was still in Germany, I think, and was starting his escape plan, which he was just old enough to start. He was, I think, 12 or 13, and he had a younger sister and a younger brother. And this was when they had to start speaking in code. And my grandfather, just before Kristallnacht, I think, he heard that Kristallnacht was going to happen somehow. So he rode on a bicycle to family friends' houses all around the community and informed them and told them, and saved quite a few people's lives, who some of them have come to Sydney, some of them live across the world. But he kind of then started his escape, and then would have to speak in code to his mum and say, like, I'm visiting uncle in Israel or Palestine, or the weather's not so great today, like, using that secretive language. And it was obviously just horrific that the younger sister they all couldn't escape.
And when did they meet up again? When was the reunion?
So my grandfather ended up, after his escape, in British Mandate, Palestine, and heard from the Red Cross in Australia that his father had survived. At this point, he didn't have any knowledge of what happened to his mother, of what happened to his siblings, probably assuming that they had passed away. And he then heard from the Red Cross that his father was in Australia, and he was planning on living in Israel. He was really significant in helping establish the land of Israel and working the land, very Zionistic you know, values. So he thought he was coming to Australia just for visiting his father to reconnect with him after the Holocaust. And then he met my grandmother, Betty Bloch, and then the rest is history.
Look, I mean, it's a horrific tale to get to a very good ending when when a new family was started and this incredible legacy that was created.
And that's all we can do. We can only learn from history, never allow it to happen again, and speak up. I really feel passionate that we all should speak up about any human injustices and, you know, do what we can to raise awareness and, you know,
carry on what they started, really.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's an incredible story. And we'll hear more about the whole Daenerys story in the Wilkenfeld family perhaps next week or the week after. We'd love to slot it in, because apparently on the 6th of September it is a significant anniversary of the Daenerys arrival.
Yeah, the 60th.
Is it the 60th? What is it? The 80th anniversary. And Lainie's mum Judy and family are going to go down to the dock at Jones Bay Wharf and commemorate it. It's actually incredible. Somebody's asked, Joan Schwartzberm's asked Lainie, would you give names of the family members you speak about?
Yes. Just to clarify, Mum, what were Zeta's siblings' names? Berta and? Norbert. And my grandmother was Betty Bloch, married to my grandfather Gershon Wilkenfeld. My grandmother's mother's name was, I feel the pressure.
No pressure, no pressure. Don't worry, no pressure. We'll do it. No. All right, we'll do that another time. So Joan, please come back and join us when we do the historical version of the session with Judy and Lainie, and we'll get all the details then, and that'll be very interesting.
But it's a really nice question, because names hold such significance and power in Judaism, and it actually elevates their soul to talk about these people and their journey. So that's really beautiful. Thank you for your question. Really appreciate it.
And I feel, so we'll talk about cooking in a second, but I just want to talk more about now the other side of your family, which for me, from an Ashkenazi background, it's so exotic and
exciting.
Rich, you know, and exciting to all this Persian food. And I've come across some of it from Nikki Vernon and, you know, and your mum.
You're close with all of our family.
And I love all those recipes, and they've added a great richness to all of our Ashkenazi repertoires, I think. So let's talk for a minute about your Persian grandparents. Can you talk about them, and particularly your Omi and her cooking influence?
It's funny, we called my grandparents, but like very Ashkenazi names. But so basically, my grandparents lived in Tehran. My father's mother lived in a more traditional community in Iran, and in Tehran, my grandfather lived there with his family, and Tehran was known to be a little bit more of a secular society. And so when my grandmother and my grandfather were like shidduch together, it was actually the first shidduch of these two towns together.
Wow.
But I think they were both from prominent families, and they found out about each other that way. And still today, like in America, a lot of the Persian communities, like from Tehran, still marry within like each other. And Mashhad, which is where my grandmother was from, that's, you know, they kind of married together. So very strong, you know, ties and that kind of thing. So they were living in Tehran, and both families held very Zionistic values. You know, one of my ancestors through marriage was Habib El Ghanian, who was very significant in establishing Jewish schools and, you know, a lot of community buildings in Iran, and was actually the first person to be hung at the beginning of the revolution, because they wanted to show, like, you're Jewish, you're Zionistic. Like, he was the figure of the community. So but in the just pre-50s, my grandfather could kind of get a sense that things weren't getting great for the Jews. And my grandfather was a very cultured man. He learned about perfumery in France, and obviously Iran and, well, Persia back then is just so full of history and culture. And that was a big area of interest for him. and he had a shipping steel deal that he was organising with Australia for the Warragamba Dam. And what had happened is at the time there was about $300,000 worth of steel, which today was probably like a couple $1 million worth of steel, and there was a fire on the ship. And basically they had to put out the fire with seawater, which rusted all the steel. So the Australian government said to my grandfather, look, we really can't pay for this steel, but what can we do to recompensate you? And this was the time of the White Australia policy. So he said, I want full citizenship for me and my whole family. And they were actually the first, not just Persian Jewish family, but the first Persian family to maybe legally come into Australia. And then
your stories are amazing. You have so many stories. It's incredible.
You know, I think it's over the years you sit with your grandparents and they tell you stories, and you know, you cling on to those memories. And
so they settled in Sydney.
They settled in Sydney, and it was a hard adjustment, particularly for my grandma, coming from a very big, affectionate, tight-knit Persian family, to come to Australia and, you know, not have ingredients that she cooked with at home. And, you know, that was definitely a struggle for her. And my grandfather kind of, he just saw Australia as such a land of opportunity. And in 1951, so they came to Australia, and then he opened Cadry's Carpets, which now have stores in Sydney and in Melbourne, and it's a growing business, and both my brothers are involved in that, and my father obviously as well.
So that's 3 generations.
Yeah, 3 generations. So the boys are probably going to continue that, and
3 generations so far, I should say.
Yeah, so far. Hopefully my little nephew might be interested and want to continue, but we'll see.
And the cooking. Let's talk about the rich cooking heritage that's been passed down to you from your Omi through your mum, interestingly.
Yes, very much so. So my mum's obviously got that Ashkenazi background, and when she met my father, who was Persian background, my grandmother, like my father was the apple of my grandma's eye, very Bobby June, and, you know, really loved him so much. And how do Jewish mothers love their kids? Through feeding them.
Absolutely.
So she wanted to make sure that my dad would be fed only the best Persian food. So her and my auntie Eva, who's married to my uncle Eddie, had to learn all the Persian dishes. So choresht, which means stew, which it's not like your typical stew. It's made with seasonal. So choresht means stew, and there's different stews. So for example, there's choresht de karaf, which means celery stew, and it's quite like a sour, savory stew with slow cooked meat that's like falling off the bone. And then you have the more rich, like fesenjun, which is a slow cooked duck stew with pomegranate and walnut.
Sounds good.
And recently I just filmed an IGTV, which I'm going to be posting soon, which is with, it's like a tardig with salmon, and the rice is a herbed rice, and it's usually to celebrate spring, and it's, you know, representing fish and fertility and abundance, and the herbs are abundant. So it's quite a poetic kind of food culture, Iranian Persian cooking.
And it sounds like every element of it has a purpose.
Absolutely,
which is
very
very
much so. Not a lot of chili, kind of light on spices and quite heavy on seasonal vegetables, and yeah, it's beautiful cuisine. So my mum learned from my grandma how to make Persian food, and then my mum...
Sorry, so that's mother-in-law to daughter-in-law.
Correct. Yeah. Exactly right. And my mum almost got better than my grandma. My grandma might have left...
Don't tell anybody that.
Yeah.
Let's just keep it our secret.
Sorry on me. My grandmother might have left out, you know, a spice of this and that. And then, you know, my mum became very known in the family for her amazing cooking.
And out of the family, I've eaten your mum's feasts, Persian feasts,
definitely.
and they're extraordinary, particularly coming from an Ashkenazi girl.
Yeah, exactly. So, and it kind of came to her very naturally. I guess that intuitive cooking very much came to my mum, because when she was young, my grandmother would often leave like chicken or something like that in the fridge and say, Judy, you have to prepare dinner, because my grandma was very much a woman before her time. She was very, very involved in establishing bloch. So, you know, definitely in the afternoons, it was, you know, part of my mum's, not role, but, you know, one of her jobs, like, let's get dinner going. So, you know, and sometimes my mum had average ingredients in the house and would do that whole, oh, okay, I've got pasta, I've got this, I've got that. Let's all marry them together. Yeah. So again, I'm very grateful that she passed that skill down to me, because that's quite a hard thing to nail, I think.
Yeah, because people are sometimes slaves to recipes and recipe books.
Absolutely.
And they look at them and say, no, we can't do that, or and then they do nothing rather than look what they've got.
And what I love about cooking is you can feel more confident in being flexible. Baking is definitely more of a science, and the more you bake, the more you can be flexible with quantities and flavors. But definitely with cooking, if you have an open attitude and like start with recipes, and then you might see a picture and go, oh, I like this, I don't like that. And yeah, it's a very fun process for me. It's very creative. And I love feeding people and nourishing people.
I think many of us can relate to that.
Yeah.
I'm sure many people who are tuning into the food stream feel food is such a part of their life.
Yes.
And it's really the center of everything.
Yeah.
Well, for me it is anyway, and for you it is too, I think.
Definitely food is something that tied together our families, and, you know, all the matriarchs in my family passed down something about cooking. You know, my grandmother Omi, through my mum, my Baba had again, like I said, she was very busy with establishing bloch. So she had a Russian woman named Tanya, who I'm still very close with today, cook those dishes that she wanted on the Shabbat table: chopped liver, egg dip, cucumber salad, brisket, potatoes, matzo ball soup, and compote for dessert. And so I'd have like this little kitchen stool that I'd stand on and cook by her side. And they're really memories that I hold so fondly. And then obviously like my Auntie Debbie with baking, and, you know, it's really such a special thing that can connect people. Yeah. And even with my work colleagues, you know, I'm very proudly Jewish, and I'm such good friends with, like, you know, my Muslim co-worker Fatma, who teaches me about her cooking, and we sit and we chat. Beautiful. And it's really fun. And
it really brings people together and connects in a way that nothing else can.
Absolutely.
So how's your cauliflower going?
It's good.
Let's see, is it ready? So back to the soup for a minute. Lainie wants the cauliflower to be super soft, so that we're going to puree it in a minute. Somebody's asked if is there another white vegetable that you would suggest instead of cauliflower, because they can't eat cauliflower.
You could definitely like make it with potato.
Yeah.
Actually, when you put potato in the blender,
you don't want to do that.
It will become gluey. So maybe don't.
You could do. What about like celeriac, which is like a celery root vegetable. I think celeriac and parsnip.
Yeah, parsnip would be great.
And turnip. Like you could do a selection of. That's probably what I would do. Like celeriac, parsnip, turnip.
Yes, and turnip will give it a little bit of that savoury.
Yeah. And potato you could put in. Like if you put potato with other vegetables, then you can do
definitely could. What else could you add? You could maybe add white zucchini for a little bit of sweetness. But just be mindful of the water content of each vegetable that you use, because zucchini is obviously very high water content and parsnip is less. So if you make it all with parsnip, you're going to need more water or broth or stock.
Yeah. Is that ready?
Yeah, that's ready. We're going to turn off the heat now.
Okay, so we'll get back to your story in a minute, but let's talk about the gremolata now.
Okay, so all I have done is I freshly toasted in the oven some slivered almonds. I don't know about you, Lisa, but I really like toasting almonds in the oven because I find it gives a more consistent toast than on the pan.
I agree.
And on the pan, like those small little bits burn and the other ones don't.
I agree.
So I just toast them in the oven for about 10 minutes and then chop them. And the smell that comes in the house
is amazing.
Is amazing.
I always have a jar of raw almonds and roasted almonds in my pantry at all times for snacking and for cooking.
Yeah, I know, they're good, right?
They're good.
I have some lemon zest, and mandarins are in season at the moment, and I thought let's add a little bit of mandarin zest. If you have oranges at home, blood oranges are also in season at the moment. You can omit the citrus altogether if you don't like it, but it's just going to give a bit of interesting difference. I also have 2 cloves of garlic that I minced using what did I use?
Garlic. Microplane.
And finely chopped flat leaf parsley. So I just wash that and dry it really well, because if it's wet, it's going to leak out all of its like beautiful flavor that you want in the gremolata. Pink salt and a little bit of black pepper, and I'm just going to add probably like
I'm just going to show
1 tablespoon of honey. The honey for me just cuts some of the acid in the gremolata, and
the smells that are coming from there, you know, the citrus zest and the toasted almonds and now the oil and the parsley, it's just beautiful.
And I really like Cobram Estate extra virgin olive oil.
So do I.
If you don't want such a peppery taste, this is the strongest flavor. I quite like strong olive oil. I don't know about you. I'm just going to grab some fresh lemon.
Okay, so she's using the dark green one, which is called Robust. I use the purple one, which is
that's beautiful,
which is the middle, and then there's the light green, which is the light, which I use actually now for baking.
Oh yeah, I love baking with olive oil.
I've just switched from grapeseed.
And they've also released a new baking range of oils. So like some are infused with chai.
I saw that.
So again, like you don't, I can give you quantities. It's about a cup of, or 3/4 of a cup of almonds, zest of 1 lemon, 1 mandarin, 2 garlic cloves, and about a cup of chopped flat leaf parsley. And just a good drizzle of olive oil and lemon. And again, you can be intuitive with this. It's not baking where it's going to collapse in the oven. Just try it as you go.
That's right. And if you taste it and you don't like something, use less of it next time. Or if you want more of something, just there are no limits, right?
Yeah, absolutely. No limits at all. And if I was making this with cauliflower in this, cashew nuts in the soup, then I would make like a cashew nut gremolata. Use what you've got on hand, and like I said, feel free to be creative. If you can't do garlic well, then you can also omit that.
It smells so nice.
Yeah, the fresh.
I wish you could all smell this, because it's really fresh and
when you're going to put on a hot soup,
Mm.
it's just going to slightly heat up the parsley and not wilt it, but it's going to like bring out its fragrance, like you've almost just blanched it.
It just makes a simple pureed soup so much more interesting.
Absolutely.
And you could really add it to any pureed soup.
Yeah,
and
or
just change the ingredients.
If you're making like a root vegetable cream or that kind of thing, gremolata is great because it does just add textural interest and a bit of freshness. You can even put on pastas, like really anything, fish, and the flavors again. You can add chili flakes if you want.
Okay. Am I allowed to taste? Are we allowed to taste this?
Yes, of course. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's why I'm here, if you haven't noticed. That's the reason, to taste what you're cooking.
We're going to send Lisa home with a take-home pack, because otherwise...
so what's in the squeeze bottle? That's lemon...
I like to do quite a bit of food prep. Here, Lisa, try that.
Okay.
And with like fresh vegetables.
Oh, that's good.
And I just like to juice fresh lemons and fresh limes and have them in the fridge, because I really don't like the taste of like bottled lemon juice that you get in the store. It's completely different.
I love this.
It's great, isn't it?
You all have to go and make this. It's extraordinary.
All right. let's bring.
And you're right, toasting the almonds makes it fantastic.
It's another dish altogether with toasted almonds.
That is really, really, really good.
I find there's some facial this.
Yeah.
ISO facials.
This looks really good. Have a look at this, everyone. I'm just going to show you how it looks. And it tastes extraordinary. That honey, that bit of honey and the lemon.
Yeah, I find it cuts the acid of the lemon. This is our pot of soup. I hope you can see. So we've obviously just got the broth, the onions, the cauliflower, and the nuts in there. I don't add salt to this soup because I find that when I use the vegetable broth or chicken broth, it's salty enough. And these days, everyone's so particular with food preferences and every diet under the sun, requirements. So I like to be conscious of that with my guests. So I think I'm going to serve this for Shabbos dinner tomorrow night as an entree. And this is a great, so it can last in the fridge for about 4 or 5 days because it's just vegetable. Obviously, if you're using chicken soup, you have to be a bit more mindful, but because it's vegetable broth, we can be a little bit more careful.
So just to answer that, this is lemon.
Lemon juice.
It's very clever to leave it in the fridge already done. It just saves time.
Absolutely.
I always have my salad dressing in a squeezy bottle on the bench all time. So I use the giant squeezy bottles and I put my vinaigrette in it.
What acid do you use?
I use red wine vinegar.
Oh, so that's not going to go off.
So I've got olive oil, red wine vinegar, Dijon mustard, salt and pepper, and I have a big one and it lives on the bench all the time. So we always have salad dressing. But I like this as well. I mean, lemon juice doesn't last forever in the fridge.
It doesn't. It lasts about, I would say a week.
Okay. It's a good idea though. It's a really good. And these you can buy at the supermarket or at kitchen shops.
Yeah, they're
and they're really
cheap.
great.
They're like $2.
So someone said I mentioned celeriac. Do you have any tips for peeling? Yeah, it is a funny vegetable. I agree with you. For those who aren't familiar with it, it's a big knobby thing that's about that size, celeriac, and it's tastes celery-ish, but it's a root vegetable. And I just halve it and just peel it on a cutting board with a sharp knife, and then boil it to make a soup with stock and perhaps do some leeks, saute some leeks. Yeah, it does look prehistoric. Okay, any more questions here? Lots of shout outs for Betty, who say she was a wonderful lady. Miriam knew her through Wheatso, and Ruth says through the Sydney Jewish Museum. A lot of shout outs to dear Betty, who I knew quite well. She was an amazing woman, and the stories that are coming from Lainie now are just beautiful.
Here, Mum, my mum's going to bring the picture. Can you bring the picture?
Yeah. So this is Betty.
It's my beautiful grandma.
And I had the pleasure of sitting in front of Betty at Shul, which I have to say made every Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur really, really lovely, entertaining,
hilarious.
And I'm going to miss her. Not that we'll be there this year though, actually.
So
okay, so we're blending. Just be careful, everyone, when you're blending something that's really hot. The lid can often pop off from the steam, and then you can burn yourself.
I'm going to get a tea towel.
You need to put I put a tea towel on the lid and just take care. I mean, really, the cord. Oh, it's on the cord. I think from an OH and S perspective, I would say allow your vegetables and stock to cool halfway to room temperature before doing this.
And don't fill up the blender the full way, because when you turn it on, the pressure is going to increase. Yeah. And again, it's going to come up. So if you fill it to the top, it's just going to spurt out everywhere. Yeah. So please be very careful when doing this. And try to start it off slowly if you can.
She said you start off slowly and then you build up a little bit. And this blender is... This is my favourite blender. I've got this one as well, Gravel. It's a really good one. It's really strong.
It goes to a milling setting. So essentially you can make your own flour. And it actually...
I think we should just make one bowl of soup with what you've pureed and then just serve it like that and let this cool. I'm nervous of doing things with hot
and you can have a look inside. We'll
can I just take this away?
Yeah, take that away. It's very creamy. It tastes like it's got cream in it, and it's all just plant-based. If you wanted to make this soup vegan, you could easily omit the honey and the gremolata and again use vegetable broth.
What else in the gremolata is a concern with vegan? I think
it's just honey.
That's it, the honey.
That's it.
So you could just
you
put
could
a
use
bit of
agave easily.
Yeah.
Or raw sugar, but I try to avoid using refined
am I getting a bowl?
sugar. Of course.
This is definitely one of the perks
Food
of the job.
is for sharing, right?
I agree. It just looks so nice and clean and simple. This soup is just it's just white and nothing else except for this beautiful bright gremolata.
And if you were going to serve this for like a Shabbos dinner, or you were having a dinner party, I'd make the cauliflower soup. And if you think it's going to be too watery, you can leave back a little bit of broth and not blend it.
Yeah.
But in terms of reheating, it's okay for it to be on the runnier side, because that water is then going to evaporate when you heat it, and it could become too thick.
So if you add too much liquid by mistake and it's too runny, don't worry. Put it back on the stove and just boil it a little bit to reduce it. Estelle's asked, can we use a stick blender?
You can, like I said earlier, you absolutely can, but it isn't going to be as creamy. Blending it just takes it to the next
level. It really
level.
does. And even food processing it is not as good as a blender.
Yeah, I agree.
So a food processor would probably be second choice, and then stick blender third. I mean, they're all fine. Yeah. We're talking, just...
And if you're going to use a stick blender, really, even more so, make sure that your cauliflower is so soft. Because any resistance or tenderness in that vegetable it's harder plant fibers to blend. So
now someone's asked for the ingredients and quantities again. It's going to be put up on the Donera website with the recording of this, so you'll see them all there. It'll save Lainie repeating them now, but again, go to Lainie's Kitchen on Instagram. Are you on Facebook as well?
Sometimes I share to my personal Facebook, Lainie Cadry. But otherwise, Instagram is my forum.
So Instagram, Lainie's Kitchen, and if you're not on Instagram, you'll find it on the Donera on demand, probably from tomorrow or this afternoon.
Anyone Sydney, Melbourne who has any food inquiries or anything like that, you can also email me at lainiejcadry@hotmail.com. So LAINIECADRY@hotmail.com.
Okay, so let's talk before we taste, because it looks very hot. So we'll wait a minute, and let's just talk about you. Have recently moved to Melbourne.
Yes.
And you're doing an amazing food initiative that I love the sound of, teaching people to cook in their own home. So would you just chat a bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Melbourne people, listen up.
So obviously I was born in Sydney, lives in Sydney still at the moment with lockdown where it's at. And I always wanted to be a pediatric nurse, a baby nurse, and cooking though was too significant part of my life to just leave as a hobby. And kind of when I took on more observance is when Lainie's Kitchen came about, because in Sydney the kosher restaurant scene is quite small. So I wanted to have my friends over and make beautiful food for them and enjoy tastes of my childhood in a reimagined way. So that's kind of how Lainie's Kitchen came about. And cooking from home, a lot of people were doing, like they'd cater from home, and it kind of defeated the heart of what I really love about cooking, which is connecting with people. Because it's all good and well to like cook food at home and just send it to people, but you do lose that personal interaction. So I started cooking in other people's houses. So people would often reach me through Lainie's Kitchen and say, Lainie, I love your food. I've been making the same Shabbos menu for 25 years. I love that it's inspired by health and Judaism and, your Persian influence and Eastern European influence. Let's cook together. So I would come to often family friends' houses and, basically often I'd come like on a Thursday or a Friday. I would cook and they'd watch and ask me questions, and then they had that feast for their Shabbos dinner or for their Sunday lunch. And then I was doing quite a bit of babysitting while I was studying nursing, and I babysat for Monica Saunders, who's a close friend of mine. And we kind of ended up making this a very food orientated nannying. And then it just turned into cooking for the family. And a lot of my family friends kind of took me under their wing. Charmaine Roth also had me, cook a lot of Shabbos, meals for her and Sunday lunches. And it kind of just turned into a really beautiful way to connect with people in my community who I knew about, who I didn't know about, going into their kitchens. And they were all like, are you sure you can cook with my utensils, this and that? And that was part of the fun, going to somewhere that was unknown in terms of what, they had in their kitchen, and really showing that you can make food in the most difficult and easy of kitchen environments. And so I then decided, after I'd finished my new graduate at Sydney Children's Hospital in Randwick, I'm going to explore what Melbourne has to offer and experience the Jewish community there a bit. And so at the moment I'm applying for jobs for the children's hospitals, but with the state of lockdown and everything going on there, I'm very fortunate that I'm actually in Sydney and not living in those circumstances. So cooking has come to the boil even more. And in Melbourne, I'm going to be cooking again, like in Sydney, but giving all my Melbourne friends and family and Jewish community members and outside the community a taste of Lainie's kitchen. So one of the things that I'm passionate about is Jewish cooking and kosher food, but I want to show people that you can bring those traditions alive in a very easy way. So I only cook with kosher meat, but I cook in people's houses who are kosher, who are not kosher, some who aren't Jewish and have no knowledge of Jewish observance. And I have people say, oh my gosh, I can't cook kosher meat, I don't know how to do it, I've got my mother-in-law coming, or my son's becoming religious, I need something like that. And I guess a big part of Lainie's kitchen is wanting to show people that kosher food doesn't have to be different, doesn't have to be okay, let's make lokshen, let's make chicken soup. It can be
not that there's anything wrong with those.
Not that there's anything wrong with that. But it can be a plant-based soup. It can, make lasagnas. You can make bolognese and put cured egg yolk instead of parmesan, or gremolata on the top. So really re-inspiring kind of the stigma related to kosher food. And making it accessible for everyone, and just a beautiful tradition to connect to.
So Melbourne people, you can reach Lainie via email, which was, say it again.
LainieCadry@hotmail.com.
Okay, and she would love to hear from you. And you're going back to Melbourne when? After lockdown, hopefully.
Maybe after lockdown, Yom Tov, I guess we'll just see. But I'm so excited to connect with all of you, even just on Instagram, on my email, and feel free to ask me any questions. And
and just follow her on Instagram for starters, because you'll be inspired by the amazing feasts that she cooks. It's really, and there are so many more stories that I'd like her to tell, but I think that we've run out of time, which is such a shame. But Lainie's going to come back in the future on her own to do a cooking demo for you guys. I'm very excited about that. So Lainie's going to be part of the cooking presenters on Dinera in the future. I will in a minute. I promise you I will. And we're going to set up a Dinera event about Dinera in the next couple of weeks, leading up to the 80th anniversary of the Dinera, which is quite good timing, I must say.
Very poignant.
Really is. It has been such a pleasure talking to you today and cooking with you, and I'm about to eat the food. I just want to remind everybody that this is going to be available to watch again in the on-demand section of the Dinera website. If you don't remember, it's dinera.org.au, and there are so many amazing things to watch and coming up. Food-wise, we have got a Monday Morning Cooking Club event tomorrow morning at 11, and Alice Zaslavsky next Thursday at 11. So lots of things to keep you entertained and to inspire you to get cooking.
Can I just say a big thank you to everyone who's tuned in and who's participating in this amazing project, and a big thank you to Lisa for involving me in such a special project. And what a beautiful idea to connect everyone across the globe on such a beautiful forum just to celebrate good things and connectedness. And
that's right. And be a community together.
Absolutely.
Everybody out there.
Yeah, and I hope you're all being safe.
This is so delicious that everybody needs to, well, go out now in Melbourne, take your hour of shopping and go and buy cauliflower. This is really delicious.
And cauliflower's in season at the moment, so they're very affordable and white and big and large. So yeah. So Stella says that you should represent our community in cooking shows. I actually agree with you. I sent a thing about MasterChef to you years ago. Please go on, but she declined. Well, I think it might just be a little bit tricky with keeping Shabbos and kosher.
I think you're probably right. Are you going to eat your soup as well?
Yes, I'm going to have a bite in the soup.
So thank you everybody for joining us today. It's been really wonderful. I've enjoyed it so much and I hope you have too. And Lainie, thanks again.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
I'm so excited to cook with you guys in the future too. It'll be really fun.
So see you all soon. Bye everyone. I'm going to eat the soup now.
Yeah. Should we l'chaim soup?
Oh yeah.
L'chaim.